ask Julia Reuckl from Österreichisches Museum für angewandte Kunst.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, good afternoon. My name is Julia Reuckl and I come from the Austrian Museum of Applied Arts in Vienna. I am going to talk about the situation of women at the Vienna School of Arts and Crafts, with a special focus on the personality of Adele von Stark, who was also a student and one of the first female teachers at the school. When the Vienna School of Arts and Crafts, the Wiener Kunstgewerbeschule, was founded in 1867, it was one of the first public institutions for higher education, also accessible for women. As a whole, a notable success, the ambiguity and problematic aspects of this development will reveal themselves in the course of the lecture. For its founding father, philologist and art historian Rudolf von Eitelberger, the main purpose of the school was the improvement of the international competitiveness of Austria in the art industrial sector. He was trying to encourage a corporate cultural identity to unify Austria and the Crown lands in a time dominated by an unstable political climate and strong nationalist movements. Industrial mass production has led to a decline of the traditional crafts. An organized artistic and technical education and the general formation of taste would guarantee the innovation of Austrian art industry. The School of Arts and Crafts was directly linked to the Museum of Art and Industry, which officially opened in 1864. The school consisted of 4 departments: the special classes or Fachschulen for architecture, sculpture, and figurative and ornamental drawing and painting. Students without any appropriate pre-education had to attend a 1-year preparation course. The admission of female students to the new school can be considered as an important progress. The school statutes, however, were formulated in a gender-free manner without explicitly mentioning women at all. Until the opening of the Kunstgewerbeschule, the only opportunity for a woman to receive an artistic education was the attendance of a private art school. By this time, female artistic production usually wasn't acknowledged as independent art, but always postmarked and subsumed as dilettantism. The reasons for the toleration and advancement for an artistic education of women in the fields of arts and crafts in the 1860s are therefore rather economically motivated. When Eitelberger encouraged the admission of female students to the Kunstgewerbeschule, he didn't think of promoting women's artistic performances as equal to men's. All he did was recognizing the idle potential of talent and cheap workforce for art industry, and therefore he recommended their use and exploitation. It wasn't his intention to educate and cultivate female artists with own creative ambitions. This becomes obvious when he suggests the formation and employment of artistically skilled women in the fields of ornamental and flower painting, embroidery, or weaving. In summary, all kinds of artworks connoted with the traditional idea of dilettantism. However, Eitelberger definitely did realize and analyze the problems concerning suitable educational options for girls and women much earlier than his contemporaries. Through graduation at the Kunstgewerbeschule, women received a professional education and therefore were given the chance to gain economic and personal independence, even if this might have caused rejection or disapproval in some social circles. Most of the female students had a bourgeois background, and up until the late 19th century, it was often considered to be shameful for upper or middle-class families if their daughters worked for their living. In the first year of the school, 7 female students were registered, from 50 altogether. In 1869, there were 20 women among 120 students. They enrolled in the preparation course and the class for ornamental painting, but were successfully kept clear of the higher arts classes like figurative painting or sculpture. The official explanation for the exclusion of women from these courses was the following. Since a sound knowledge of the human body, which would necessarily include a life drawing course, couldn't be attended by female students on grounds of decency, they are naturally not well enough prepared for a higher arts education. When in 1872, a group of 20 female students asked for the constitution of a special class just for women, their request was rejected immediately. Under the directorship of Josef von Storck in the 1880s, further restrictions were imposed. Since the perpetuation of the admission of female students to the Kunstgewerbeschule was confronted with the accusation of encouragement of dilettantism, the registration for women was extremely hindered, and they were advised to go to private institutions which by this time already existed to a sufficient extent. Exceptions should only be made for very talented and pre-skilled applicants. It should last until 1899 that women were granted free access to the school. When the school's directorship was assigned to Felician von Mürbach in 1899, things changed drastically. Mürbach enforced a fundamental reform of the curriculum. He was the first who reasonably acknowledged the autonomy and originality of female artists and artisans. Mürbach also put into effect some essential personal changes, including the nomination of female teachers. His liberal way of thinking might be related to his close contacts to the English arts and crafts scene, where the presence of female artisans was common practice much earlier. A personality who directly benefited from Mürbach's radical innovations will be presented in the second part of my lecture. One of the most important female protagonists at the Wiener Kunstgewerbeschule during the first 2 decades of the 20th century was Adele von Stark. Not only that she frequented the school as a student at a time when the accession for women was rather restricted, she later became one of its first female teachers. Born in the Bohemian town of Teplice in 1859 as the daughter of a high estate official, Adele von Stark moved to Vienna at a time not yet determined. We are comparatively well informed about her artistic education. First, she attended a private drawing school for girls and women in Vienna, an example for the type of private schools for female artistic education or dilettantism referred to before. Towards the end of the 70s of the 19th century, in 1878, Stark was accepted at the preparation class of the Wiener Kunstgewerbeschule. After her year of preparation, she was trained at the school's class for drawing and painting and the ceramics workshop. In 1887, she also frequented the workshop for ceramic decoration and enameling. Her leading teacher was Professor Hans Macht, a traditionalist mostly relying on the old-fashioned teaching method of copying. Until 1890, she remained a student at the Kunstgewerbeschule. When Felician von Mürbach was appointed professor in 1897, she returned to the school and attended his classes for painting and illustrations for a year. It must have been due to Mürbach's positive personal experience with Adele von Stark that he appointed her temporary teacher in 1903. Her task was the technical direction of the workshop for enameling. On the basis of archival material, we can assume that during the time between her recordings at the Kunstgewerbeschule in the years from 1890 to 97 and from 98 to her appointment in 1903, Stark was working as an autonomous artist and artisan, producing enamel works and creating miniature painting. Besides, she was giving private lessons in drawing and painting. She also went for various study trips to Germany and Scandinavia and visited the cities of London, Paris, Geneva, and Venice. It has already been stated that Mühlbach's entry to the school led to some fundamental changes in the school's policies. This was also the case concerning Stark's promotion. As mentioned before, she mainly studied under Hans Macht, who was responsible for the design of ceramics and enamels. In 1903, the workshop's name was changed from Workshop or Special Atelier for Ceramic Decoration and Enamel Painting to Workshop for Enamel Works, and Adele von Stark became its technical teacher. Hans Macht, as a consequence of Mühlbach's efforts, had to retire temporarily until 1906, when he was put in charge of the school's library. Also in the case of Stark's promotion, we find the already discussed problem of ambiguity. On the one hand, there's the extraordinary fact of a woman being given the opportunity not only to study and practice, but also to teach within the sector of arts and crafts. On the other hand, we cannot skip the fact that the privilege of teaching was restricted to the executing part, excluding the creative process of designing, which was still monopolized in the hands of men. Apart from that, it should be added that Adele von Stark was indeed one of the first, but not the only female artisan being nominated as a teacher at the Kunstgewerbeschule. She was joined by Rosalia Roth-Hansel and Leopoldine Gutmann, who were elected teachers of the textile class. In 1908, Adele von Stark's temporary status was changed to a permanent one, and in 1918 she was even nominated as a professor. She continued teaching until her death in 1923. Stark seems to have been a very engaged and full-hearted teacher, as can be assumed from the recordings in the annual records of the Kunstgewerbeschule. She organized field trips for her students to various institutions in Vienna and its surroundings, and also held lectures about the art of enameling. To Stark's workshop, especially students were admitted who had already reached an advanced stage of artistic formation. They mainly derived from the painting classes of Koloman Moser and Felician von Mühlbach, or from Josef Hoffmann's class for architecture. The designs created there were executed in the workshop. Among her students were renowned artists like Maria Likatz, Rudolf Kalbach, Leopoldine König, or Franz von Zülow. The school of Adele von Stark successfully presented enamel objects at diverse exhibitions in Vienna and abroad, for example at the 1914 Werkbund exhibition in Cologne. Stark's Stark's professional ambitions and her desire for teaching must have started much earlier than 1903. This cannot only be deduced from her private teaching activities following her formation at the Kunstgewerbeschule, but also from an official request to the governmental department in 1896 to found her own drawing school for women. The request was turned down, but at the same time aroused a debate about the inadequate artistic educational opportunities for women. Adele von Stark's significance for the female emancipation movement within the Viennese artisan landscape actually exceeds her capacities in the sector of art training. It can be considered as a personal merit that the art of enameling regained considerable importance as an artistic technique. She was able to unite traditional techniques with modern motifs and was also very curious on experimenting with new combinations of materials. The driving force behind these developments was once more Felician von Mühlbach, who heavily criticized the backwardness of enamel works created under Stark's predecessor Hans Macht and who enhanced Stark's creativity. This wooden sewing box was designed and executed by Stark around 1910. The lid of the hexagonal casket is adorned with translucid enamel, consisting of a grayish lilac foundation with a spider net-like decor, overlaid by irregular pink spots and transparent glass stones in box mounts. On each of the three large sides, 2 square pieces of translucid enamel are placed.